Okay, good evening, good afternoon, and good morning to those of you who are joining us from across the world today for another edition of Pandemic Punditry brought to you by the Content Experience Company. We are delighted and honored to have Robert Luo, founder and CEO of Mi Terro, a Forbes under 30 scholar, a GreenBiz 30 under 30, and a serial entrepreneur. Welcome to Pandemic Punditry, Robert.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure, and thank you for joining us. We are super excited to talk to you today about a very exciting company that you founded. I know you're on a mission to end plastic and food waste from our planet. How big is this problem, Robert? Can you share some numbers to illustrate the magnitude of the problem for some of our viewers?
Sure. So the world produces around 78 million tons of flexible packaging material every single year to protect our food from going to waste. Ironically, 40% of the food, which equivalents to 1.3 billion tons, still goes to waste. So it's an enormous problem that creates 1/3 of the carbon dioxide in the entire world. So we have to solve this problem.
1/3.
One-third, around 1/3, yes.
Wow. So in order to protect our food, we use plastic, and despite that, we still waste 40% of it, if I heard you correctly.
Correct.
Right, which amounts to 78 billion tons. Is that right number? No.
1.3 billion tons.
1.3 billion tons a year. Right. And then, so what is then, your answer to this is to sort of create Mi Terro, and we're going to get into that a little bit to find out, how you do that exactly. But the problem is obviously huge, right? So this is a huge problem that you're trying to solve. Karthika, you want to take the next question for Robert?
Thanks, Lavi. Welcome, Robert. It's really nice to meet you, and thanks for coming on the show. So, at a personal level, Robert, what inspired or motivated you to start Mi Terro?
Mi Terro started after I visited my uncle's dairy farm in China back in 2018. And that was when I was first exposed to all the milk waste he had on his farm. And initially, I tried to help him find a solution to distribute all this milk waste. Then I spoke with my childhood friend Daniel, who has material science background, and we started working on a solution that turns milk waste into something we could possibly wear. Because we understood that protein inside of milk can be made into fiber that is super, super soft. In fact, I can show you this is the milk fiber, milk protein that we extracted, which has been made into fiber, just like the one I can show you right here.
Yeah, please.
Milk fiber has been made into t-shirt, which has been sold to 40 countries around the world.
Okay, so you take the milk protein that's it's in waste milk, right? This is not regular milk. This is milk that's spoiled, right? Is it any particular kind of protein? Is it like casein or something like that, or?
Yes, we use casein to spin it into fiber.
Okay, wow. So you saw this waste happening. You decided to form the company, and I understand you saw this in China, and then set up this t-shirts now that you make are manufactured in China in your facility, and then just sold to 40 countries.
It is manufactured in China with a partner that we work with.
Okay.
So can any kind of garment manufacturer buy this fiber and create their own sort of products or designer brands or labels or clothing?
Essentially, yes. You can blend our fiber with other material, such as model, cotton, whatever you want. You can blend it with. And our customer in Japan had test our fiber and then blend it with other fiber to create apparel for their own employee and for the Japanese market customers.
Okay, so it works with both, I guess, artificial fabric fibers as well as natural.
You can say that it's semi-natural, where it comes from protein, and we don't use any petroleum material. There's no acrylic inside. We blend it with wood cellulose-based material to make the string strong.
Okay, but your product can also be blended with it's like synthetic fibers as well.
It can be, yes, it can be
Okay.
blended with other synthetic fibers.
Okay, so it's in that sense, it's quite versatile. It works with both natural fabrics as well as synthetic fabrics. Sorry, Karthik.
Correct.
No, it's fine. I was just interested to know, Robert, how you kind of honed in on milk, and why is milk your base product?
Milk was our first product, like what I mentioned, because I visited my uncle's dairy farm and realized that he had a lot of problems with the spoiled milk that he couldn't sell, because in the past he was selling the milk to big dairy brands in China. But nowadays, big dairy brands in China, they build their own ranches, so they don't need to work with smaller dairy farmers anymore. So that was my initial motivation on helping him to find a solution to get rid of these milk waste. And obviously, no one's going to take the spoiled milk and drink it again. It has to be something that cannot be eaten. So we thought, why not turn it into material that people can use, possibly can wear, because the protein, the taste and protein inside of milk has a lot of amino acids that are good for the body. Perhaps it can nourish people that have rash or skin issues. So that was the initial motivation to create milk fiber.
Wow. Okay, so you also mentioned I think you could have even a plant-based if you wanted to get a vegan fabric out of that. So how does that work?
Sure, yeah. So we are currently working on a even more interesting technology that can turn agriculture waste, mainly plant-based waste, into packaging material to replace plastic. So this is a protein we extracted from spent grain, which is the byproduct of brewing. And I can show you a prototype that we have created from spent grain. It can be made into the cling film. It can be made into fashion packaging material that one day it can possibly replace plastic packaging.
Wow.
So
So
plastic bottles and things as well, or
This is made from spent grain. So maybe one day it can be made into plastic bottle. But what we're focusing right now is on flexible packaging, because
flexible.
that type of packaging is really hard to replace nowadays. Most of the time we use LDPE because they're so flexible, they're so durable. Also, they're very cheap. Price is something we focus on since day one. We understand that in order for us to truly make impact, we need to lower the price that matches traditional plastic films.
So when you said spent grain, it's spent grain, right? So it's rice or wheat or corn or something like that. Is that what you meant by vegetable?
So it's made spent grain is mainly come from barley. It's a byproduct of brewery. So
brewing. Okay, I see. Okay, but could it as be sort of rice husk and wheat chaff and all of that as well? I mean, is it particular to barley, or it can be any kind of spent grain?
So we are testing currently with barley.
Okay.
We are going to test with, like we mentioned, rice and other materials. We really care about the protein concentration inside of this material. If it has high protein, then that would be very ideal for us to use as a material.
I see.
So in its natural state, the fiber or the other material that you've just done, it's completely degradable, right?
It's not only degradable, it's also compostable. It can be home compost. I mean, if you could bury it in the soil, it should break down, compose within 180 days.
Wow.
Within what time frame?
180 days.
180 days. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
wow,
so
that's pretty fascinating.
Sorry, Lavi. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Ask a question.
No. I mean, the website, one of the things they also list down is personal necessities like toilet paper and stuff. And we know what a massive, harm and, weight on the environment toilet paper is. So can the milk fibers actually be used to create zero waste toilet paper?
It's an area that we have to continue to explore. But if it can be made into fiber like this, it can certainly be made into something that's thinner and more flexible. We just have to think about whether this can add value to become a toilet paper.
Right. This is, I assume, for you a consideration of price, right? because
Yes.
toilet paper is cheap. The process that you're obviously going through to extract the milk protein and transform it into fiber, blend it with cellulose, right? So the question is that process economical enough to manufacture something as inexpensive as toilet paper, or is the value add better for fine garments or something like that, where your price parity equation is better, right? So that's what I'm assuming that your challenge is. But
Yeah,
at scale, it potentially could, I assume.
potentially. So our estimation is that once it reaches commercialization, it will be similar as the traditional LDP film on the price end.
Okay. So Robert, how much? Okay, so how much of milk waste or barley do you need to create sort of, I don't know, 100 yards or whatever of this thing, right? So if the world adopts your technology and processes, how much of
Mhm.
that waste number that you mentioned earlier is impacted
Yeah.
or can be
Sure.
impacted?
Sure. So take into consideration of, let's say, spent grain that we're currently developing with packaging. For every ton of raw material, we can create around 80 rolls of films, and each film is around 2,000 feet times 30 centimeters, which is a pretty long film. And
Wow.
once we reach commercialization, we estimate that every year we can produce around 1 million rolls of films, and that will continue to increase. So this will replace at least 1 million rolls of plastic film that are currently being produced.
Wow. Wow. So
Sorry, Lavia, I
go ahead,
have
go
a
ahead.
follow-up question. So obviously the pandemic has also caused huge amounts of medical waste, right? In terms of masks and PPEs and all of the things that we've used in order to keep ourselves safe. I've noticed in your website that you've listed down medical, products as something that can be derived from the milk fiber that you're producing. So, and scientists, of course, are predicting future pandemics. Does that mean, the milk fiber that Mi Terro produces can be used to produce facial masks, PPE suits, to keep staff and frontline workers safe?
Yes, so our fiber has in fact been made to face masks before. Through our collaboration with the UK company, they used our fabric and turned into face masks that they donate to health workers. So it has been done in the past. And we definitely look forward to continue supporting health workers and medical workers with our material.
Oh, wow. So, what I find fascinating is I think another interesting sort of number to share with our audience is that only
Mhm.
15% of all plastics that's made in the world is recycled. So once you convert petroleum byproducts into plastic, it's pretty much here to stay. Whether that's in some ocean or some landfill or somewhere, and only 15% of it gets recycled. And what I understand from my limited understanding on the subject is that once recycled, it still is plastic, right? So it's like if you make five items, five things of plastic, that five things of plastics pretty much remain. As far as I know, they can take a different form. A bottle can become a T-shirt to a sneaker and whatever else. However, once you make it, it's there. Am I right? Are there any technologies that you know of that takes plastic and makes it into something other than plastic that's degradable?
Not that I know of, because the moment it's been made is already not good for Earth. We have to extract fossil fuels from Earth, and this
Of course.
requires a lot of energy, a lot of CO2 emission. So even if it breaks down in soil, it's still not good for the Earth. And you mentioned the 15%. I think the number might be even lower than 15%. And
15, 1 5.
yeah, 15. I mean, the last time I checked, in the article was around 10%, but
Okay.
15%. Though 15%, that's still a huge achievement. Consider how many decades of effort have been put into recycling plastic. But I would say that the answer is not to keep on using plastic and recycling them, but to replace them with renewable raw material. That is essentially what we want to do, to use renewable materials that does not come at a cost of our environment.
No, exactly, Robert. I think the brilliant the thing about what you're doing at Mi Terro is that you take a product that's actually waste to begin with, that obviously is not fit for human consumption, or you haven't found a way to deal with it, and then you convert it into something completely different in terms of usability, that is then also biodegradable,
Possible.
and reusable. So I mean, that's pretty impressive. I mean, we are strong proponents of advocating for a circular economy, and we love, we saw your company and we would love to talk to you, because here's a classic example of a company that can really help the world adopt a more circular economy.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
I want to add a point to what we were discussing about recycling plastic earlier. So currently, most of the plastic that we recycle are made from PET. That's what you see in the bottle, plastic water bottle, because
Okay.
water bottle only requires one type of material, which is PET, and they can recycle it. However, consider these flexible film you probably see at home every single day or in the grocery store. These films are made from multi layers. That means it can be made from LDPE. It can be made from other materials that are nearly impossible to recycle, because when we recycle them, we cannot break down different layers and get them back together again. That's why these films are normally not recyclable, and that's what you might see is turtles, fish consume, are these flexible type of items.
Okay. Wow. So
Right.
I learned something new
Interesting.
here today.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is the plastic bottles and things like that you normally see,
Mhm.
that particular type of plastic is highly recyclable, or well, can be recycled. Whether it's recycled or not, we're debating between 10 and 15% of that getting recycled. But the film, which is something that I think is quite, in all food packaging, it's there. I mean, and it's everywhere, right? That
Right.
itself, because of the multi-layered and the various different types of plastic or material chemicals that are used, it becomes is impossible to recycle, and therefore can cause the largest amount of environmental harm, from sort of sea life to mammal life and everything else. Okay, so what you're doing really is sort of taking something that, essentially what you would the right outcome would be that people stop using the other kind of plastic altogether and adopt your plastic, right? That's what you're really hoping the world would do.
We hope that not only us is finding a solution, we hope to build a community of innovators that are trying to tackle the same problem. Because if we're the only one, that means this industry is not going to grow. It's not going to grow. We need allies, even competitors, to join this effort so we can even work together. It's not a single. There's not a single solution that can solve it all.
So to that end, so go ahead, Karen.
No, sorry. So speaking of competitors, Robert, I think you brought on a good point. How hard is it for you to scale your manufacturing process and set it up in different parts of the world?
Mhm. So since day one, our goal has always been to scale up to reach commercialization. That's why we are partnered with big um, food companies like Budweiser that they can support us in volume once we're ready for commercialization. At the same time, we're using agricultural waste because we can source at very low cost. That can help us to lower our material costs when it's ready for commercialization. And once we improve our process, that will also help us to lower the cost to meet demand.
So your strategy currently is to sort of, you partner with these large food companies, as you said,
Mhm.
to sort of eliminate this whole plastic film business from there. You are obviously setting up locations close to food waste, so you have access to ready raw materials. Uh,
Mhm.
I wanted to kind of go back to sort of your comment around building a community, so that, and even, seeding potential competitors, because that's the way to sort of, attack this at scale, which is, very important, because, if you want to meet your kind of larger objectives of making a dent in the problem. To that end, do you have plans to maybe license your technology once it's sort of mature and commercialized, or do you want to set up actually individual? I mean, for example, I'm coming to you today from India. One of the the largest consumer of milk in the world. same numbers in terms of wastage, right? So, and also with a population that will exceed China in 2030, we got lots of food waste, right? So so if if an entrepreneur in India is listening to this conversation, it's highly likely that they are. What would they do? I mean, could they eventually sort of license this with you or partner with you to come and manufacture in India? Is that in your plans?
That licensing is definitely in our plan once we reach commercialization, because we want our technology to scale up quickly to be able to use on a global scale, on a worldwide scale. So it doesn't have to be in China, it can be in India, it can be in the US, in Europe. We want to license our technology. So the existing manufacturers, for example, plastic manufacturers, they can use our technology and apply it to their extrusion plastic manufacturing machine.
Okay, wow. So that's very forward thinking. So what you're suggesting is, I heard the word extrusion there for a second. So are the machinery that you use, I mean, obviously things are proprietary and whatever, but you're not using things that are you have machines that you yourself have created, or you've taken existing sort of machinery but have a secret sauce to how you do it? So is the setup cost of setting up a manufacturing unit to do this extremely high? Or, I mean, I'm just trying to get an idea of what investments somebody would have to make, or would this be a retooling of a whole new plant, or can you buy machinery sort of off the shelf from somewhere, put together, I mean, obviously to your specifications, put together a factory and you're good to go?
We don't want our partners to retreat where we build entire plant to meet our process. That's why we are testing the extrusion process, because basically all the plastic we're using right now are made from extrusion process. There might be a little tweak on the machine, but it's not a major change to the entire machine.
Okay, so that's even more interesting. So what you're saying is that if you're making plastic today, right, and you're doing what you're doing to the environment, therefore, by adding sort of some of the stuff that you come up with, the formulas and how to extract, if you then take food waste, whether that's milk or plant-based or whatever, and you then go through your process of extracting the proteins, then the very same machinery that you have today, without any additional investment, can be used to do what you're doing, correct?
Yes, essentially just a little tweak on the machine. You don't have to buy a new machine.
Just a little tweak. Yeah, tweak on the machine. Wow, that's big news. Okay, that's really big news.
It's pretty big news.
Yeah.
So Robert, in your website, you talk about saying no to greenwashing, right? For the sake of our audience, could you explain what greenwashing really means?
Sure. A lot of big corporations, they say sustainability, but a lot of times they don't really address sustainability to the environment. Rather, they talk about business sustainability, revenue sustainability, continued growth. There are other companies that are using compostable materials made from fossil fuel, to name them, like PBAT, PBS. Even though these materials are compostable, they are made from fossil fuel. So in our term, that's kind of greenwashing, because you still have to extract from this fossil fuel from Earth and do the processing. So that's not what we use in our process. Our materials are all bio-based. They are nothing fossil fuel related.
Speaking of materials, Robert, are you in touch with the Material Innovations Initiative? There are two really lovely ladies, Nicole and Stephanie, who are actively working with communities to replace materials with circular economic materials such as yours.
I have not been in touch with them, but if you make an intro, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're happy to make the introduction. We will introduce you. So they just started last year, and so they work with lots of big industrial companies like DuPont and everybody else. As they're an independent think tank. So what they do is to sort of facilitate ideapreneurs and entrepreneurs like you with large industry and with technology and everything else. So I think it'll be a great idea, Karthika. So in the time that we have, Robert, so where are you in terms of, are you institutionally funded? Are you looking for funding? I mean, what's next for you in your growth of Mi Terro?
Mhm. So in the past, we have received small investment from a Japanese angel, and but we do have been generating revenue on our own, and we have seen a lot of competition prices. We have been a lot of competition prices. So we have a pretty healthy runway, but we are intending to start raising our next round in Q3 of this year to support us and help us funding the semi-commercial production, which should be set up in 2022.
2022. Okay. And so you're hoping to be commercially ready 2022? Is that the target?
2022 will be semi-commercial ready, and by
Okay.
2024 or latest 2025, we will be commercially ready.
Okay. 2024, 25 is when you'll be commercially ready. And so this would be a sort of a commercial size operation to produce these materials that you demonstrated today and showed us today as well, at scale, in China, I'm assuming.
Yes, in China.
And then at that point, 2025, 24, 25 is when you would potentially, once you sort of worked out the kinks, you would be then licensing the technology to others.
Correct. I mean, once we're ready for semi-commercial production, then everything will become more clear because we're going to run through everything on our own first before we set up the licensing model, before we start supplying to other manufacturers or other partners in the industry.
Okay.
Yeah, by the way, Lave, I'm not sure whether you noticed, they also support the Eden Project initiative.
Oh, okay. Wow. So you have a healthy runway right now. You'll be potentially raising some funds for the plans for 24, 25. Are you looking for investment from anywhere in the world, or you looking for investment from China in particular?
Now we are accepting investments from anywhere in the world. We're very open-minded. We're looking for strategic partners who can help us with manufacturing, who have experience with manufacturing. We're also looking for partners who can help us with logistics, with raw material supplying, because we see this technology potentially as game-changing, and we want this to scale up quickly.
Well done.
Sorry, I have a final question. I know we're running out of time, but I'll ask it really quickly. If an entrepreneur came to you today, Robert, and said, I'm manufacturing yogurt, let's say, and how can I work with you to develop sustainable packaging? Is there a path?
We first have to understand what is their need, whether our material will work in their best interest. If it does, then we will be supplying them some samples for testing. Once it's ready, then we might launch a pilot together to test out the material in more details on their own products.
So the film that you're using is food grade?
Currently, we're testing. We're testing that.
Okay. But you hope it to be food grade, because I guess the main user of film is food packaging companies.
I mean, and essentially, hopefully, one day this will become edible, where you can just eat it with the food. That's wrapped around it.
That would be amazing. So you could actually chew through it, and you'll have I'm hoping, for the sake of Karthika and myself, a vegan version. At the point we're ready to eat it. But we're both vegan. So the vegan version as opposed to a milk product version. But okay, great. But so Robert, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a fascinating, half an hour of incredible information around. I mean, I learned something today as well, and I hope our audience, who also consists of investors from across the globe, also heard your call. We will make the introductions to the to MMI and Nicole. And
if investors want to get in touch with Robert, what is the best way?
Definitely reach out to my email, robert.luo@miterro.com.
Okay, great. So we'll do that, and we'll let them know how to contact you, and wish you the very best. Please keep in touch with us. Let us know if you have anything new that comes up. We would love to have you back on the program, and getting you a chance to sort of let the world know what you're doing. So we put your email address up there. So if anybody wants to support Robert in his mission to change the plastics industry forever, get in touch with Robert. Thank you, Robert,
Thanks.
for joining us today and for taking half an hour of your day to talk to us.
Absolutely. Thank you. And stay safe.
Thanks so much.
Take care. Have a great weekend.
Bye.
Take care.